Welcome, everybody, on a beautiful sunny night. Thank you for being inside instead of outside in fall when we're not going to have too many more of these evenings. We appreciate you being here. Can I ask, before we get started, as we always do at every meeting, is there anybody here that this is your first time at a Tribune Building project meeting? Yay! All right. Okay, welcome. Happy to have you here. I also want to acknowledge and thank River Cities Community Access. They are taping tonight's meeting in its entirety, and they will rebroadcast. So if you have friends or others you would like to have tune in to what was said here this evening, it'll be available on River Cities. So for those of you who may not know me, I'm Kelly Ryan, and I'm CEO of Incourage. And as is customary at the beginning of each Tribune meeting, I'm going to share a number of relevant project and organizational updates with you, which is why I said you're going to hear a whole lot from me tonight. Since we haven't met since January, we wanted to start tonight's meeting with this timeline visual, which we recognize we're going to have some challenges with the sun and the light here, but the same visual on timeline is also on your tables if you want to take one and follow along. In an effort not to overload you, we'll touch on a number of these items throughout the meeting. Please know, from inception, we at Incourage work every day to realize the Tribune project. Of course, the most recent item announced just last week is related to the state budget, and unfortunately, funding for the Tribune Building project was not included in the final state budget that will be voted on by the legislature in the coming weeks. While we are disappointed by this result, and we are truly disappointed by this result, less for ourselves and more for the people that have really supported it and we've worked with, we also want to acknowledge just how much we accomplished in this process. We and Representative Krug were impressed and encouraged by the level of community support from residents, businesses, and the nonprofit sector and community organizations. For those in this room, and there are many of you in here, who did outreach multiple times for many of you, including the last day that the budget was approved. In the final hour, the Tribune was still up in discussion, and we called some business leaders and said, will you call the speaker and call the majority leader? And they said immediately yes. I mean, I can't say enough about, we want to thank you. You helped to increase the awareness about the needs of our region throughout the entire state. Cultivating relationships with our elected officials and state agencies is very important, and you're going to hear from actually Representative Krug in a few minutes. And we encourage you to continue reaching out on items that are important to you. We will keep moving ahead to explore other avenues to secure the financing we need for the Tribune, and you'll hear Representative Krug talk about some other state sources. Further, we traveled to Milwaukee yesterday to meet with prospective investors. And as it stands today, we have approximately $5.2 million remaining to meet our goal of $6 million in grants or contributions. The remainder of the capital stack for the project will be supported through other financing sources, including debt and New Markets tax credits. So the grant capital or the contributions we are seeking for the project itself total $6 million, and of that, we still need to secure $5.2 million. Further, we will continue to strengthen relationships in Madison as well as locally. Representative Krug is also committed to continuing his efforts to pursue other options outside of the state budget as standalone legislation through existing agency budgets and collaboration with city and county officials. As he's busy wrapping up the budget in Madison, he was unable to be here with us tonight, but he did record a video that we'd like to share with you.
Good evening. Just wanted to give folks an update of where we are with the state budget, and especially in relation to the Tribune project. First of all, thank you all for being there tonight. I'm sorry I couldn't join you. The state budget is up for debate tomorrow here in Madison, so we're caucusing today. Otherwise, I'd be happy to be there with you. Throughout the last couple of years, I really appreciate those who have been there every step of the way through this process. So just a little bit of an update. You may have heard already, I'm sure, that the state Tribune or the state budget did not include the funding for the Tribune project. Wanted to let folks know that that's not the end. This project isn't over. My commitment to it's not over. There's still some other things we can try to make sure that keeps the state involved. Also, as you may or may not know, the state has already been involved with funding for the Tribune Building through a few rounds of WEDC funding. That seems to be the most likely next direct source is to go to the WEDC again. In this state budget, the WEDC will be receiving $55 million in a revolving loan fund package. So the dollars will be there. It may be part of the commitment for Incourage to do some matching dollars now instead of a direct allocation through the state budget. But I think we can make something work. There's plenty of other avenues to work on. Just wanted to let folks know a little perspective about how the Tribune funding goes in the state budget and other projects like it. So a good example of a project like this was the Confluence project in Eau Claire. Pretty widely supported in the community. Took some time to get through the state legislature, though. That was about a 5-year commitment, 2 or 3 budgets. I remember talking about Confluence before it actually got done. One of the other major components with Confluence, though, was that the city and the county were also involved as well. So that's what we hope to do as well in the next few months, is to get some more push from the city, get the county maybe involved in the project a little bit more to show those direct dollars going into the project for more local sources. I'm very happy that leadership at Incourage has done a great job to make sure the private sector will be involved, whether it's just through the dollars itself or through support. So the support levels there, obviously, it just takes some time to get the legislature on board with the project. I can't think of a bill that I've worked on recently that's gotten done in just one session. So yes, we have worked really hard over this last year at the state level to try to help out. We do have some more work to do. Leverage-wise, I think it was a little tough for us to gain some leverage as we had a lot of priorities to get done in the state budget. For example, the improvements to Alexander Field, moving those up from 2021 to 2018 to make sure that all the increased traffic from not just Sand Valley, but from other companies in the area that need that facility updated can count on that to be done. Second of all, we talk a lot about high-capacity well issues in the Central Sands area. We're successful in getting the largest hydrologic analysis done in the state budget so we can start dealing with some of those high-capacity well issues, getting answers for that, finding good solutions. So there's a lot of things that we did get done in the state budget for Central Wisconsin. This one didn't quite even make it into the budget. But like I said, with all your support, with all your effort, all your advocacy, working with the leadership at Incourage and other community partners, I'm sure that other avenues will present themselves soon. And if they don't do it soon, we have another crack at this in the next state budget. Now that awareness has been raised to the level that we have some really good conversations to get us to the finish line, I have no doubts we'll find a way to get it done. So again, thank you all for being there tonight. Sorry I couldn't join you. Feel free to call my office with any questions anytime. Here in Madison, the number is 608-266-0215. And we'll talk to you all very soon, and have a great day.
I do want to say one thing about this whole process of advocating for the Tribune in Madison, and believe me, we have been down to Madison many, many times in the last 11 months. But every time we had a conversation about Tribune, we talked about Southwood County, and we advocated for Alexander Field as well, right? So the fact that Alexander Field is receiving improvements is a really good thing for our community, because we do have planes on the ground there, and the capacity, we need the capacity to handle more. So that is a really good investment, as disappointed as we are that the Tribune didn't make it in. But truly, we have a good relationship and have been working with WEDC, as Scott referenced in this video. So I want to say also that the state budget request for the Tribune was important for a lot of different reasons. However, I want to take a moment before we move on to call attention to other kinds of contributions to support this project, and in particular, local resident and Tribune meeting diehard, Richard Breen. Where's Richard? There he is. Richard has basically given up his summer and his living room to rear caterpillars and train others so we could sell monarch chrysalises to benefit the Tribune Building project. This was Richard's idea, and for me, it's reminiscent of realizing this building that we're in tonight, so that tells you how long I've been around, right? But when this building was coming to fruition, senior citizens were raising money for it through games of bunco and bringing coffee cans with change into our office on a regular basis. And they were saying, you know, it's gonna take a whole lot of bunco change to realize this building, right? And we agreed, but what I wanna say is, Everyone that brought cans of Bunko Change felt a much greater sense of ownership in this place because of that. So I went off script. So who would have thought I went off script? Who would have thought that because of Richard's leadership, hundreds of residents have experienced the joy of watching a monarch emerge and setting it free. His efforts raised awareness about the monarch population and raised over $6,000 for the Tribune in the process, selling $5 butterflies. Yeah. So, will you stand up, Richard? Thank you. Really. Yeah, I mean, really. And his wife deserves a great round of applause, too, because she turned her house over to the caterpillars, as she told me, right? So with Richard's efforts, we've now achieved $340,000 toward our local fund development goal of $1 million. So thank you, Richard. Moving on to share information related to tonight's conversation. We understand the Tribune Building project is complex and unique. However, it is not the only unique development in the state. If you've attended meetings before, you've heard us talk about the Confluence Arts Center in Eau Claire, and Representative Krug just mentioned it in his video. In February, Incourage coordinated a site visit to Eau Claire to learn more about the city's revitalization efforts. The group that attended with us were participants in our Blueprints for Tomorrow program, which is a 2-year training program. It began in June of 2015, and it focuses on techniques and tools to do economic development differently and collaboratively. Participating organizations included the City of Wisconsin Rapids, Wood County, the Housing Authority, the YMCA, Central Rivers Farm Shed, and Incourage. What we saw in Eau Claire was telling. Confluence took 5 years to be realized and faced its own challenges and controversy. By implementing many of the same principles that Blueprints embodies, including collaboration and unique financing led by the city and county investments, not only is Confluence nearly complete, but development has sparked throughout the downtown. Today, Eau Claire is growing faster than all Wisconsin cities except Madison. And I would say we too here have the opportunity to position ourselves for growth, as recommended in a 2015 competitive asset assessment, which was commissioned by REGI. REGI stands for Regional Economic Growth Initiative, and that's our local effort led by Rick Bacoka, who's here tonight. You want to stand up, Rick, and just... and Rick, I want to say, was instrumental also in securing and advocating for funds for Alexander Field, so thank you. That same study was funded by WEDC, and in that study, the recommendations include, first, build economic development capacity in the community. Second, reinforce economic drivers such as entrepreneurship. Third, work together as a region. And fourth, investment and a shared vision to realize a central place in downtown Wisconsin Rapids as a means to attract new businesses, residents, and visitors, retain young professionals, and establish its place in the larger region. The Tribune plays a role in advancing each of those recommendations and is called out in the report as an opportunity to advance economic growth. In July of this year, we hosted a meeting with Blueprints participants who were planning projects in our community's central place, as the report called it, including the city, the YMCA, and the Boys and Girls Club. We called this meeting to begin to understand the changing market conditions in the downtown, as well as to discuss aggregate demand, and what would we need in downtown if we have new investment coming in, and opportunities for collaboration with the projects each organization is working to realize. I'll touch on this more in a few minutes, but before I do, we're pleased to welcome a longtime partner of ours and now one of our newest downtown neighbors, Kent Anderson, who is Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club. And he is joined tonight. We didn't expect Brett to be here also. He's supposed to be at a different meeting, but Brett Salscheider, who is Executive Director of the Y. And we wanted them to talk about their recent announcement, and you can hear it directly from them, to renovate and co-locate in the Rapids Mall. So, come on, thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having us tonight. I just wanted to take a little time and kind of update all of you on where we're at with our project. We've seen a press release recently. I hope you all had a chance to read it, but give you a firsthand kind of insight of where we're at with our project. So about a year ago or so, the club and the YMCA got together and we entered into a formal partnership to build a new collaborative facility in our community. And we've done a lot of work, and the Y did a ton of work leading up to our involvement in the project. And most recently, we identified the mall location as our primary spot to locate our new facility. So we do have a number of contingencies that have to be met yet to close at the end of November, but we are very confident that those will be met and we can secure that location towards the end of November. So this partnership really is a great opportunity for both of our organizations and for the community itself. It gives us the ability to get a new state-of-the-art facility, serve more families, serve more kids, and really hopefully become a hub in our community for activity downtown. The Boys and Girls Club, we are in the pitch facility right now, and we are coming to the end of a lease. The Rapid School District has been gracious enough to allow us to be there for the last 5 years, and we're fortunate enough we're starting to outgrow that space. So this was a great opportunity for us to partner with another like organization to eliminate any duplication of services in our community, and like I said, really strengthen the programs and the services that we offer to our kids and our families. And I think the opportunity that is presenting itself by having us downtown will not only benefit our kids, but really benefit our community, and I think that's what's most important. So just to give you a little timeline, we are in the silent phase of our campaign right now. We are looking to hopefully break ground in the spring of 2018, and then looking at about a year to year and a half build. So we got a lot of work to do yet to be able to hit that timeline, but that's what our hopes are, and that's what we're striving to get done. Last thing I'll say is that, and I know I can speak for Brett on this, is that both of our organizations support the Tribune and encourage in all of their efforts to realize the Tribune Building, and being able to have all of our organizations downtown is going to be something that's monumental in this community, and being from Wisconsin Rapids, to see this type of transformation is just really powerful. So we really want Encourage and the Tribune to be successful, and all of us downtown to be successful, to really realize something for our community that's never been done before. So we're here to just support that and give you guys a little update, and be on the lookout in the upcoming months for some more announcements in the paper, and that's it.
That's great. Thank you guys. We are excited about the Y and the Boys and Girls Club co-locating downtown near the Tribune Building. Actually near this space, Centralia, there's opportunity to maximize a lot of assets in this area. In addition to the Y and Boys and Girls Club, there are a number of changing market conditions downtown that we'd like to spend a few minutes talking about. At the first public meeting, and you should have a map now, right? Okay, there it is. That's the map of community assets that residents identified when we first started this process in 2013. Attendees spent time identifying existing community assets, both for shared understanding and to avoid redundancies when determining uses for the Tribune Building. The map that came out of that exercise is here and on your tables. In the nearly 4 years since that exercise was completed, there have been many changes in our downtown. These changes are important for us to take into account as we consider the highest and best use for today's Tribune. As you'll see in the highlighted map behind me and on your tables, which now if you flip it, there you go, those are changes. There are a number of items shaded in pink, indicating current and proposed assets. These include direct changes to the downtown. So of course, the Y and the Boys and Girls Club you can see that Kent talked about. The River Block building that now houses Wood County employees. And as shared not too long ago in a finance and property meeting, the green space development plan for the former parking lot in between the Tribune and the River Block building on the west side of the river. On the east side is the city's riverfront triangle project, which they have proposed as a multi-use building, mixed retail and residential space. Surrounding these projects, which is a pink dotted line that goes around it, is the perimeter, is the city's planned waterfront and streetscape development area, which they've received grant funding to begin to do riverfront enhancements. And nearby, but not directly on the map, but it still would be considered part of this central place, right, is we have an aquatic center approved to be located near Witter Field, and we have a new splash pad going in near Mead Elementary School. So of course, our community changes every day, and in addition to known changes here, there are also unknown changes or changes that may happen in the future. For instance, tonight, actually, as we meet, Finance and Property Committee for the city, agenda features a closed session item related to a lease proposal from the Cultural Center for this space in the Centralia Center. As we considered the known changes as they relate to creating a central place, opportunity for collaboration and impact on the Tribune, a few items came to the forefront. So first, the Y and Boys and Girls Club development presents the opportunity for a significant amount of dedicated youth space downtown. I think is it 90,000 square feet? Is that, yeah, 90,000 square feet, 12 acres, is that correct? Which was not previously there when a game room and play area were included in the Tribune's plans. Also, given the challenges related to parking downtown for small businesses and county employees, as well as an increase in green space, we thought about the Tribune's planned landscape, which you have a picture of on your table as well. It currently features some parking and some green space, and perhaps with the increased amount of green space elsewhere, that green space that you originally designed and considered, we might want to rethink. This development activity, you know, as Kent referred to earlier in terms of investment, this is really unprecedented. In my time in this community, it's unprecedented downtown. I started in this community as a store manager for what was Prangy's department store here in the mall, right? And I've been in this position for 20 years. And I've worked with 4 mayors, and 3 downtown plans have been approved in that time period. And not in the space of that time has there been the opportunity to align the amount of capital that is proposed to come in downtown right now, which is about $75 million. So we've been exploring each of these items through conversations with interest groups and stakeholders, which I'll speak to shortly. But first, right now, we want me to stop talking and for you to talk to each other. We want to hear from you. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather, who is going to introduce tonight's table discussion.
So at each table, there are table hosts, and so they're going to help facilitate the discussion at your tables. We recognize that a lot of information has just been shared with you. Some may be new, some may not, but we want everyone to have the space to just react to what you just heard. So for 5 minutes, we'd love you to just share your reactions or any questions that have surfaced for you as you've been hearing this, and your table host is agreed to write it down. And then once we've spent about 5 minutes, and I will be watching time, then I'd like you to turn to the Tribune floor plan that we have on the table with the green space and parking on the back. In addition, or looking at that with the current and proposed asset changes, so that we can reflect at our tables about, based on what you know now and based on what we planned a couple of years ago, what impact does that have or could that have on these plans? And so we're gonna have about 10 minutes for that dialogue at the table, and then we'll do some reporting out. Okay? So I'll give you about 5 minutes just to react right now to the information that you've heard. I do want to remind everyone that we do have a question and answer period kind of mapped out on the agenda coming up, so there will be more opportunity to ask questions. But I want to open it up now for any feedback, any conversations that you had at your table that you'd like to share with the larger group. And I'm going to be running a microphone out to you so that it gets captured for Carol, or she'll be managed.
So our general reactions are that we are so excited, obviously, as probably most of you are. We feel like there's lots of ambitious projects, but they all give each other momentum and kind of fueling the fire for community involvement and the excitement downtown. As far as the Tribune space itself, we kind of just love the inside the way it is. we feel like even though there is some overlap between a few of the areas and some of our new assets, you know, it just kind of completes the feeling of the building. And if you start kind of pulling pieces out and switching it around, you might kind of lose some of that cohesiveness of making it available to everybody in that respect. And then we were hoping outside to try to create a little bit more parking to kind of ease some of that issue as well. So maybe taking away a little bit of the green space that's outside. So hopefully that's not what everybody else said.
I took all of your
Thank
ideas.
you.
So a lot of discussion at our table on what was talked about, the best and highest use. So as we looked at the floor plans, you know, some of the areas that have been mentioned already, the game room, depends upon what the final design is and intentions for the Y and the Boys and Girls Club, whether the game room would actually be needed, whether the playroom would actually be needed. Also the study room, I know the Boys and Girls Club does a lot with tutoring and stuff like that, so whether the study room would be required. Again, social space, the gallery, it depends upon what's not going to be duplicative. That's basically what it came down to.
Just saw somebody. We were really excited, just like everybody else in this room, to see the collaboration that's happening, not only here but regionally. It's exciting. And we're happy that we have a presence in Madison, so thank you to everybody who did that. And we're happy to see the Cultural Center being housed here for now. In fact, on the other side, I'm wondering, I know there's other options, but might there even be a collaboration between the Tribune Building and the Cultural Center if some of the children's things move to the Y? That was a question we had. And we love that the green space and the river are used by everything and that everyone's supporting everybody. It's really great to see all the collaboration. Anybody else?
Regarding our comments, our first couple of comments were similar to what Amy had mentioned about there was excitement, the fact that we are moving forward despite the obstacles of collaboration, and it's always a unique situation when that happens. And someone mentioned that there seems to be a feeling that there's a change in will. It's more about the public will that people are looking at this rather than the political will of what's more important based on a political institution or a specific individual viewpoint. So there seems to be more of a surface there. And we have a downtown neighbor, Donna here, lives very, very close, walked over here and said that people are really interested that live in this area about what's happening and are excited about the regional approach and the working together approach. As far as the plan, there were, I think, some really neat discussion points here about obviously the game room and the play area. However, there were some thoughts about, does some of this new potential space offer opportunities that were talked about but maybe left out in the past, such as maybe a data center or a technology think tank for people who could, with those same kinds of interest areas around entrepreneurship, bring forth a gathering spot where people could talk. And then of course, that would lead to a creation of maybe additional revenue streams that we haven't maybe really thought about. Rick also mentioned one thing that apparently is happening over in Stevens Point, where they have a place and a location where millennials to seniors can meet and congregate, and that's something that I think we'd be interested more about learning. And so that was our discussion. It was a very, very good discussion. And Jamie, I apologize. It was Jamie that mentioned those comments on the front end. So thank you.
I'm here. Thanks. All right, this side of the room has been well represented, so I want to have a call out over here. Anyone want to share?
We also talked about small businesses and options for small businesses. Marilyn reminded us that in meetings 3 or 4, we talked about potentially having incubator space within the Tribune, and we had some discussion about the kitchen being part of that vision as well as the maker space, but maybe revisit the idea of actually space for businesses to locate for a while. We talked quite a bit about green aspects of the building being important, and that the design around the building is important for modeling that green, the green living that Tribune was about. And Pat, this is Pat's first meeting, and she came out from Dexterville. She was part of the Progress Funds actually many years ago. But she was talking about parking and how important parking is going to be to creating that central place that Kelly talked about. When we think about a region, and if you are thinking about Wisconsin Rapids and the downtown there, as you're downtown and you're living out, your community member who lives outside of Rapids, you're going to need to be able to park. So that's going to be something that we have to consider.
I think that we talked along the same line as Jenny's table, in the sense that that green space particularly, we need to reevaluate and look at whether we can perhaps meet all of our goals. Increase parking for the community, that has become increasingly vital, and that there might be other options as far as still keeping that environmental status that's so important as well. As far as the spaces are concerned, I think this table was somewhat enthusiastic, Shane, about perhaps relocating those kids to the Y and keeping those spaces as other options within the space. I said they should all go to his house, but he didn't like that idea. Then we've been having a really vital and wonderful conversation with Missy, who's joined us from MSTC, about the possibility of there being satellite campus opportunities there. It's exciting to be hearing more and more about their hospitality program moving forward, and that there might be more opportunity and space for instruction, entrepreneurial support, and an extension of those great opportunities in the culinary space that's near and dear to my heart. So overall enthusiasm and a desire to learn more about the intent of the other spaces downtown and how we might collaborate.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that we had a discussion here that evolved very strongly from my passion for education and the necessity of education for entrepreneurship and the evolvement of businesses and just individual learning and other things. And I think that a lot of the space is really great, and this is really good. A concern that I had was sustainability, to make sure that we can give our people, the people that are actually using the facilities, the opportunity to learn more, become really passionately involved with what they're learning, so that they can continue to learn, continue to evolve the entire space, and make sure that the spaces, that we give that kind of intent in the beginning now, and with an emphasis on education and passion of education and passion of learning, so that we can evolve this into something that will sustain over the 30 to 50 year time period ahead of us, which is kind of obscene, but I think it's really necessary. Really good ground, trees don't grow overnight. They take a long, long time, and you've got to, you can't bend a tree after 25 years. You've got to be really intentional in the beginning to make sure that you do it properly. And so I think the proper amount of passion for education and the opportunity for teaching passion and teaching education at this point is really critical.
Thank you. Great. All right. Unless there's any other takers, I think we'll transfer it back to Kelly that has more information for us, but I will thank you for all of your comments, your reactions, and your thoughts. This is just the beginning, right, as we go back to our plans. But what I would share with you from Incourage's lens, those questions, those comments, those things that you're bubbling up at your tables, it's been percolating back at Incourage as well, and so it's really helpful to get your insights on that.
Yeah. It has been percolating up at Incourage, so I'm gonna not, am I good? Yeah, you're good. All right, so it has been a large part of what we've been working on for the last several months, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that right now. Before I do, I just want to comment on this process in terms of hearing from residents, in terms of what's important to you. One of the most important things to every legislator that we sat down with in Madison about this project, and they felt was most valuable, was that it was community driven. Every single one of them. It didn't matter if it was in the Northwoods of Wisconsin or a legislator from Milwaukee. The idea that residents were engaged in helping drive a process was really, really exciting to them. So I just want to say that's what happened right here, and that's what will continue to happen. So we're happy to hear your comments. We've recorded them all, and of course we'll take them into consideration, and we're going to come back again, but you need to know what we've been doing, and also that when we're done speaking, Christopher and I are going to have Q&A before we end. So if you have questions, we're going to stay and answer questions here for everyone. So as part of our due diligence on this deal and recognizing that things have changed in the last few years, we're currently assessing the business models in each space of the building, considering the current conditions, revenue, and long-term sustainability. This has been going on for a few months. We've also coordinated conversations with interest groups and stakeholders, including small business owners. We've talked with the Rapid River Mash Masters home brewers. I got it all together, right? Yeah. I can't say enough about the group. I mean, as well, they serve beer at the picnic. They have a meeting every month, and every month they raise money for the Tribune. I mean, so they do it, instead of butterflies, they do it with beer. We've talked with them, as well as project advisor and owner of Oso Brewing, Mark Butera, to understand the changing landscape of the brewing industry. Mark has agreed to continue to serve as an advisor to the Tribune Building itself as it comes to fruition, and share their continued interest and commitment. So additionally, I want to say, there's been some changes in the last few years in terms of legislation that affects brewing beer, and whether you're a microbrewery, a brew pub, etc. And we've been evaluating all of those and how they impact the Tribune Building. And I'm happy to share that this is the space in particular that has attracted interest from a group of local investors that want to invest in helping make this brew pub or microbrewery a reality. We've met with a local makers group, and many of them are here tonight, to understand the highest and best use for the Tribune to support the maker community. So as an outcome from that meeting, they are doing their own asset mapping homework to map the current landscape of assets in the community. What spaces are already available, and so we know in the past couple of years, McMillan Library, as an example, has a small maker space area. Midstate has a little bit of attention to maker space, but this group is going to map what's available and what is the intent of that particular space, and then how can the Tribune maker space be used to its highest and best utility to coordinate and collaborate. And we've met with project advisor Amy Scheid, owner of Great Expectations, to talk through the current opportunities and desired uses of the culinary kitchen based on changing conditions and the network of local food advocates she works with. So I think in 2013 or 14, we mapped all of the culinary or commercial kitchens in the community, and we're just going to revisit that and see how contemporary it is. I know there's one in this building, actually right behind us. There's a small commercial kitchen that we helped get together, right? I also know there's a small kitchen in the Wise new building project, but the purpose of their kitchen is really to educate healthy nutrition, etc. So understanding what we have, how to coordinate and use them to their highest and best use. And we've met with Kim Kinsey, who owns SUP The Rapids, to understand current demand, opportunities, and challenges she has had in the 5 years she's been in business, which could relate to the planned recreational rental spaces in the Tribune. And as we shared with Kim, our intent has always been to complement and enhance current businesses. If she wants to grow it, we want to help her grow it with the Tribune, not compete with others. We're also exploring regional, state, and national partnerships focused on growing an entrepreneurial culture, right? So I think the reference at Gus's table, as an example, we've been partnering and having conversations with an organization in Portage County called Create. And this is the group that makes investments in the areas of creativity and innovation, bringing together multi-age stakeholders to think about how does creativity and innovation foster entrepreneurship. So we think that entrepreneurship is more than this area. It really is a regional approach. And finally, in addition to stakeholder and interest group conversations, I'm going to ask Steve Turner to come up here and join me, who is he's our operations and building project manager for the Tribune. And he really doesn't want to speak, but I said, come on, you have to speak tonight, team. We're having ongoing conversations with our construction manager, J.F. Findorf, and our architect, Concordia. And Steve is going to speak briefly to those conversations because he's been leading them over the past several months.
Hey, it made me turn red. Since we received the first project cost assessment, that was almost 2 years ago. We were working with Findorf and Concordia to assess the overall business costs, including understanding what the current cost of the materials needed to construct the building. We are also exploring the potential cost-saving opportunities that we'll share more about in further discussion in future meetings. We're also looking into what options we have related to a phased approach, meeting the possibility of building taking and building the building in sections, or 4x4, floor by floor, or something like that. So that's what I've been doing. So thanks.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. So Steve has hidden talents. Those that don't know Steve, he started working with us part-time on IT while he was full-time at Renaissance Learning. And what we discovered also was that he was very involved in the construction oversight of that new Renaissance Learning building on Peach Street when it was built, right? And here we had this incredible asset inside our organization, right? So it's been a wonderful thing to have Steve working with construction and architects. So we've given you a lot of information tonight, and we want to give you the opportunity to ask questions. I know there's a lot of information. This has been taped. We're going to have additional meeting now before we get to the end of the year. We'll definitely have another meeting. But I'm going to invite Christopher Gash, our board chair, up here, and he's going to do some closing remarks in a minute. But before he does, we want to answer your questions. And if anyone has questions or comments for us, even comments for us, we really want to model good behavior in terms of commitment to transparency, and that's what we're trying to do throughout this entire process, so people know every step of the way what it takes to get something like this done. Stephen Hittner, Family Natural Foods.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yes.
I had a question. I wondered about this from the beginning of the project, and I never really asked the question, so I thought this is a good opportunity. What about doing this building in stages? So we can open part of it, or we could do it, part of the way, and we can get people moving and engaged.
Yes. So yes, that is part of what we've been working with Findorf and Concordia on in the last few months. Steve has been working with them on that, in particular to see, could we do the shell of the building and the first floor? And if we did that, the first floor would have the microbrewery brew pub portion open, the culinary kitchen, and the beer garden on the front, in front of the river, right? So when we say that, more recently when we've giving some tours, people's eyes light up. So if in fact we could do that, we would commit to doing that. There are additional costs to doing it that way. So what we're trying to figure out right now is what's the additional cost to do it that way, and then move up to doing a second floor and adding a third floor to the building, which is what it was originally designed to have, was that third floor. The other thing I would say, and Steve could say this much better than I can, but is that it is an equipment-heavy building, and it is a systems-heavy building. So like HVAC, the things that support brewing, etc., they go from first floor all the way up through the building. So that's part of what the consideration is. Is that correct? Would you add anything else that I missed? Okay, thank you. So good question, and it is something that we're reviewing. So we'll come back to the next meeting, and we're going to give you the numbers and say, here's what Findorf and Concordia said to us. Amy?
I just want to say thank you for bringing all of the different players and what's happening in our downtown together today. I think we're all hearing bits and pieces, and I really appreciate the fact that we had an opportunity today to discuss all of the development as a whole, with as many people as were willing to come to the table and talk today. Thank you for that.
One question that came up at our table is if maybe you can give us any insights, if you have an idea about some of the businesses from the mall, and maybe you are not the ones to answer that, but if you've heard anything, you know, are there plans to opening up some of the, talking about the triangle, the city triangle development, trying to get them in there, downtown, or, you know, we're just kind of wondering about that.
I really don't, and I couldn't speak with authority to it anyway. Really, that's the city to speak to, but I do know that there was a demand study done on the mall itself in terms of some of those businesses and what other businesses are needed in the area. And I have to believe that the city and Reggie and everyone else will do everything in their power to make those businesses continue to be viable and grow. Truly. I mean, that's what we have to do, right? We can't have businesses not have parking downtown. We can't have businesses leaving a mall because we're going to put in, which is going to be a beautiful Hawaiian Boys and Girls Club, but we need business growth and development to support human service kind of activity like this, right? So we're not losing sight of that, right, Rick?
Most of the businesses will have to be out before subsequent developments are ready for them. We actually have a meeting at 10 o'clock on Thursday with the city, Reggie, and the county, and the chamber to kind of outline how we're going to address some of the folks who are in the mall. Actually, for those businesses that are there, they would be, in some of our minds, much better off and have much more business opportunity where they relocated to other parts of our community because of the low mall traffic. So we're going to do whatever we can to help the most viable companies and those that want to come out of there, and we're going to work together to put together a plan that's going to address all of them and hopefully support what they want to do.
Great. All right, we're going to be here for a while afterwards, and you're welcome to ask any additional questions, contact us anytime. There's a Tribune Building Facebook page. I would encourage you to get involved there. If you liked this is not closing, but I'm just going to say, if you feel like good information was given tonight, that this is important to this community, we need the community to hear your voices in terms of advocacy. So it's good for people to express their opinion and be heard in the community, and that's what will help us move forward. So without further ado, I got to answer all the questions, and now Christopher gets to do the closing remarks. So thank you very much.
Let's get to be Vanna White and stand here. Thank you. As you've heard tonight, Incourage does remain steadfastly committed to the Tribune Building project. And as we've said since the very beginning, the Tribune is about so much more than a building. And as the discussions that you all had at tables tonight showed, we understand that this the user-centered principles demonstrated and so integral to this process is what will carry this process through to completion. We remain committed to active listening and to giving residents the opportunity to have these kinds of meaningful and civic dialogue where various opinions and all perspectives are respected, are encouraged, and are ultimately acted on. We believe that no one knows better what residents need than residents themselves. Many of you have expressed to us that you want to invest in the Tribune as an important opportunity for our community's future, and we want to provide an opportunity for everyone to invest with contributions of all types and all sizes. This year we've undertaken quite a few resident-led fundraisers to do just that. So whether you've bought, sold, or supported a Tribune fundraiser in a different way, thank you for that support. To outside funders, those kinds of local investments demonstrate community commitment to a project. And for a national funder from outside the community, Wisconsin Brat Fry is a unique fundraising opportunity, right? For us, it's just something you do in the summertime. But other Tribune fundraisers included baking and selling hundreds of cookies for Valentine's Day this year. We submitted a video in an online voting contest through Gannett, which of course was the mayor of the Tribune Building. And then of course there's the Monarchs, which you heard about earlier. We do have remaining chrysalis here tonight for $5 each, so pick yours up on the way out and give it a good home. Finally, I also would offer my thanks personally and from the board and from Incourage as a whole for your support throughout the entire state budget process. We're grateful for the letters and phone calls to our state officials, sometimes even more than once, like Kelly said earlier. Be assured that those elected officials have taken note of your outreach. And as Kelly said, while we're disappointed in the outcome, this is not a setback. And I said in a discussion later last week that I think about the analogy of an arrow all the time. Arrows only go forward, but you have to pull them backwards in order to get them to do anything. And sometimes that can be how it feels when we're in the thick of this. But know that we hear you and we see you, and your opinions and your perspective is so valuable. You are an invaluable part of this process. And we at Incourage we get to be there to sort of keep the gears moving underneath and keep it going, but this won't work and it will not happen without you. So thank you. We also thank and commend Representative Scott Krug and Senator Patrick Teston for all their efforts thus far. They really are committed to seeing this through until all avenues of state funding are exhausted. So I would invite you to reach out to them via phone or email to personally thank them as well, because that goes a long way, again, to showing that the residents of this community are in this. So if you'd like information, any other information that hasn't been discussed tonight about the Tribune, see any of the Incourage staff members, stop into our office or visit us online at our website. So from all of us at Incourage, thank you. And with that, I will give it back to Heather to close things up.
All right, the only thing I would ask before you leave is if you could fill out a reflection sheet that we have as one of our common practice on the table. And I just want to give you a heads up, good news. Back in 2012, we did a community survey to surface what were the key priorities in our community, and we are going to revisit and do another survey this fall. So I don't have a launch date per se, but it's coming, and be looking for communication from us. Thanks.